So yeah, today's class is going to be about your sales pipeline, how to close more sales with your sales pipeline. In Command, it's referred to as an opportunity. One of the things I wanted to accomplish on today's training for everyone was to think of opportunities like your sales pipeline. I think that it's confusing that we call it something else. And also, I do a whole class that is how to do a transaction command. In that class, I'm in the opportunity. So because I teach that all the time, I think people start to think of an opportunity like a transaction instead of before the transaction. So what I was hoping to accomplish with today was to change people's mindset with this call. Think of it like your pipeline. It is your sales pipeline. That whole opportunities section, if anybody has a conversation about real estate with you, and especially if they indicate anything about buying or selling, add them to your sales pipeline or as an opportunity in the cultivate phase. So I have Matt on the call today. Matt is our other MCTT. He is our agent volunteer. So kind to volunteer your time, Matt. Thank you. And Matt, before I dive in with sharing the screen and everything, did you want to talk about your experience with opportunities?
Yeah, so like you were saying, Danny, it's obviously what I'm hearing is that a lot of agents are not putting things into opportunities until they're like, oh my gosh, I'm in contract, or I have this listing that's already for sale. And really you should be looking at it as that should be something that automatically you're doing, and you're putting them in months before that ever gets to that situation. So, I have quite a few that are in opportunities, and I can share kind of what my pipeline looks like. And it's okay to have a bunch of people kind of sitting at the very far left-hand side at the start area, because that means that those are people that you've had, like you mentioned, have had conversations that they might want to buy or might want to sell in the future, but you're just not there yet. And that's okay, because it helps you track them. So instead of looking through your database of 1,000 people or however many people you have in your database, trying to be like, oh yeah, who was it that I saw at the holiday party last year that mentioned that they wanted to buy real estate in 2021? You actually have it all in one spot. And it also is great because if you have a down day where you're like, hey, I actually don't have any craziness going on, and you're like, who should I call? You could look at your opportunity list and be like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to Joey in 5 months, and I should check in with them and see what they're looking at and if they're getting any closer to buying a house this year, type of thing. So.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Well, with that, I'm going to start sharing my screen. All right, so we're going to go to the opportunities section, sales pipeline. It is the handshake symbol on the left-hand side of your screen. And here is the dashboard. So we have listings separate from buyers and leases. On leases, again, we only really represent landlords because there's usually not commission in it if you're helping someone find a place to move into, unless it's a commercial tenant. So we're mainly working though in listings and buyers here. And you have cultivate, appointment, active, under contract, and closed. We call those phases. And underneath or within each of those phases, there are stages that you can work with. So I'm going to go into cultivate, right? Because we're talking about using this as your pipeline, building your pipeline, your future clients. Under cultivate, the stages that I have, I've actually customized these. Watch 12+ months, nurture 6 to 9 months, hot 6 to looking now. You can edit these too by using this button in the top right corner to edit stages. Notice also on each of these, there's this percentage. That is the probability that when I have a pipeline in each of those stages that they're going to close. So we're in cultivate, right? As we move someone along through the appointment phase, those probabilities are going to increase. So that's why it goes from 0 to 5 to 10%. I'm going to click edit stage. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you get rid of that download at the bottom, you can see if you go back to the page you were on before, and then get rid of hit the little X in the lower right hand corner to get rid of that bottom bar there. Yeah, click that. Oh, scroll down a little bit more. I guess you need to scroll down a little. It actually also has both the potential for that bucket, for that column of what. So if you had like 4 different things in hot looking now, it would tell you what the probable and potential are for those types of in that section, which is nice.
Yeah, that's really handy actually, especially if you're thinking about, you know, what your goals are for the year and how many appointments you need to have, how many people you really need to have in your pipeline in order to hit your goals.
And the potential is the commission you could get for everything. If all those, if you had 3 deals there and all 3 of them closed, the potential would be all of that. And then the probability is the percentage that's at the top. So only 10% of that number. So it's assuming that only 10% of those 3 deals actually get all the way to closing. So it's a good way to kind of just look at where things are and understand. And that same functionality mimics on the front page too, as far as your potential and your probable income, which is also helpful for understanding kind of where your goals are going this year.
Yeah, and to Matt's point, so right now I only have 1 opportunity in hot 6 looking now. My pipeline does not look good. This is not a good pipeline. I don't have very many things in here. So what's going to happen to me next month? I don't have anything, right? This pipeline is essentially empty, right? And what does that 10% on hot 6 to looking now mean for this one deal? Practically nothing, right? If I had 10 deals in here, then that would basically be assuming that one of those deals is going to close. And then that probable income would mean something more real to me, right? If I load this up and actually work on building this, and I have, 10 things again in hot 6 to looking now, then probable is going to be, that 10% is actually going to mean a more realistic number. 10% of this, if this doesn't close, I get 10% of nothing, right? So those probabilities are more handy if you have a robust pipeline. So if you're like me and you have 1 person in there, it's kind of tough for that to be really meaningful. And so Taylor, you're just starting out, you're just starting to get people in here, you're a new agent, you're starting to build on this. So as you get your pipeline more robust, those probable numbers are going to become more accurate, if that makes sense, because the more things you funnel into your pipeline, the more things you're going to close in general, because the more opportunities you just have at the table.
How are they getting?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to ask if you want me to share my pipeline, because I have a little bit more stuff in mind if you wanted me to show.
And Taylor, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, how are they getting that number? Do you put in like what the client's budget is?
Yes, correct. Okay. Yes. Okay. So if it's a buyer that when you create that opportunity, it's going to ask for their budget and what's your commission rate. And same with the sell side as well. It's going to ask for what your side of the commission is and what their selling price is. So for a listing though, you're putting the selling price, like you're until you ratify, you're not going to update that number. So it'll become more accurate as the deal actually materializes. And same with the buyer, right? What if they don't spend their whole budget, or what if they go over budget? Once it ratifies, those numbers get a lot more solid.
So this is what my pipeline looks like. So for Cultivate, I don't have, as you can see, I have mine labeled differently. So I just have cool buyers, nurture, and hot buyers. So cool buyers are people who've mentioned that they're interested in buying, but haven't really focused on that. And then nurture are people who are kind of more looking, that I've had more regular ongoing conversations with. And then hot buyers are people who I've had a recent conversation with that I know I need to get an appointment to actually get a buyer representation agreement signed with them, which kind of comes on to the next phase, which is appointments and getting those taken care of. So if I kind of, as you can see, I have in my projections, I have mine all set at 0 because I don't want to count on any of this income until these people actually get a buyer representation agreement signed, which is in this phase. So when I get it scheduled or scheduling it, have it scheduled, and then actually keep a listing, or sorry, a buyer representation meeting scheduled. Once that is kept, then that's a 10%. And then once I move into active, then you can see my percentages start to increase. And you can edit these yourself. So you can go in here and adjust those just by hitting edit and say, okay, if I want searching to be at 30%, I can just type this and change that to 30%. So it's really easy. You can also change the stages that you want. If you wanted to take out negotiations, maybe you just write offers and you don't actually have, usually things go so fast from writing an offer to either getting in contract or not. Negotiations might be something that you never use. So you could just remove that if you wanted by just hitting delete here. So that's kind of a cool thing. So in looking at this, obviously, so like this client right here, just an hour ago, I found out we wrote an offer and we did not get it. So I can very easily just drag this client now from writing offers back to showing. And so we're just continuing to look for properties. And in here, if I actually open this up to your question, Taylor, here you can put what their budget is and then the information about it. You can also put a description in here, and you can edit, what their down payment is, those types of things. I also can put in here, this was an agent referral, so I actually need to put that in here because I didn't have that before. So that's a good spot for you to keep track if you were tracking like how much you need to pay for an agent referral on here. So like this is a 25% agent referral. That way I don't forget that information. And you also have to keep track that, of this commission that I'm getting, actually, a quarter that's going to go to another agent. Does that make sense?
And then all the contacts, I'm like working on my contact list right now, we can send that to, I think I remember somebody saying we can send it, the whole list, to somebody, right? To upload it, or do we upload it ourselves?
Correct. You can.
Scott, go ahead. Sorry.
Scott Lower Marketing can help with the upload, or
Okay.
you can do it yourself. There's 2 options. So
I would have them do it. The brokerage pays for that for you. So
yeah. So then under contract, I have clients that are currently under contract, and then they eventually move to close. Like I actually just before this call started for one of my listings, this is under contract. And so we're right here under financing, and now we're actually clear to close, which we're closing today. And once again, you can see these percentages I kept at 90%, and then obviously it goes to close today when we record this afternoon. So it's kind of nice that you can kind of just move people through the transaction. This is now we're looking at my listings cultivate. So I have, as you can see, I have these people who are in here. So like these are ones that once again are referrals. These are like both of these right here, referrals from other agents where they've made a soft introduction, but these clients have actually never called me back. So I just have them sitting over here on the watch list. And then, I would move them forward as we start to go through the entire process. So
that's really cool. I did have a question. Actually, Matt, if you don't mind going back to your previous screen,
do you want
cultivate for listings. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't mean to pick on you, but I was noticing that you don't have any checklists on things that you have under watch and nurture.
Yep.
So in the bottom right-hand corner of each of those, you don't have any checklists. And I was just wondering if you've given some thought to maybe using these checklists for follow-ups, to have like templated follow-ups. Like maybe there's 3 things that you do, like you call, you maybe text, or I don't know, some types of follow-ups checklists that have you considered that? Is that something you've thought about?
Yeah, so I've thought about doing it 2 different ways, and you can accomplish kind of what you're talking about. So I think ultimately I think smart plans for something that you're doing in your pipeline for people who are just doing under cultivate might be a smarter thing to do, because then it'll come up and you can do reminders and those types of things. Checklists in the opportunities, you actually have to go in and it shows them there. I mean, it'll show tasks,
Right.
but they're attached right there.
Correct.
Sorry, I just got a call. Can you see my screen still?
Okay. Yeah, I can see. I see you on Cultivate still.
Okay, hold on just a
Cultivate and
second.
watch.
Just okay. So yes, you can do that there. Where I find checklists really helpful for listings are things like when you get into actually property prep. So like if you were doing refinished floors, for example, you could do a checklist of like, okay, I need to get 3 quotes for refinishing the floors. You need to review those quotes with the client. Need to select the quote. Need to then follow up with the vendor. Like, so you can set those types of checklists up. I've also thought about doing some smart plans. I just haven't had an opportunity to do it yet, to kind of things like, so you have a new first-time home buyer. Like one of the things they have to do before they close escrow is they need to get homeowners insurance. So, you could set up a smart plan that actually says, okay, this person's now actually in contract, and every week send them a different information about, hey, here's some recommendations on some inspectors that you might want to reach out to. The next week, it could be like, hey, have you figured out what you're doing for your homeowners insurance? Like, here's Keller Covered, and here's a link to their information. Let me know if you have questions. So you can really automate some of the processes of things that you're constantly trying to think about while you have multiple transactions in different stages. If that makes sense.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So you're using smart plans kind of for those beginning follow-up when you're in Cultivate. I have a question. Do you think that you have closed more deals do you think you've closed more deals since you've been using the pipeline tool when you're putting things under Cultivate an appointment?
Yes, because I mean, if you look here under, go back to the high level. I mean, I have 17 buyers that are in Cultivate, right? So that's $15 million worth of potential deals that I have that I'm keeping track of here, versus if I was trying to go through, if you look at my database, I have 4,000 people in my database. So I would never be able to keep track of where those 4,000 people are in the process in my head. So using the pipeline really helps me kind of keep track of exactly where they are. Obviously, a lot of these people are kind of in the cool or nurture phase, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to want to buy at some point. Like this guy right here is my dentist. He actually just bought a business. This woman is renting right now, so she wants to buy at some point. These people already have their home and just want to buy a home that they can live with their family in. So like I know where all these people are, right? And it's nice because when I come in here, I know exactly where they are in the phase and when I need to potentially reach out to them. Although you can also see, like, I put a time frame in here originally because this was last year that they were going to want to buy by March 31st of last year, and now we're in May of 2021. So obviously the pandemic had some impacts of these types of things, but it still gives me a good one-stop shop. And then you can also add notes. So like if you talk to someone, you can say like, hey, I sent a checking in note to this client back in March, just saying, hey, what's going on? So it allows you to kind of keep track of everything that's going on in that transaction. I'm trying to look at the one that I'm about to close escrow on and probably have, so I have notes here about like what they have going on. Some of my clients, I'm better at getting notes in there than others, but it's a great way to kind of document everything in the transaction as well.
That's really cool.
Really quick, there's templates for the to-do list too. Is that what I saw? Just because I guess with like my listing right now, a lot of I'm like learning as I go. I don't even know, like, I've had to like research what to do at every stage kind of thing. But if I wanted to use one of the templates.
So I don't think there's templates. There's templates for documents that you need, but I don't think we have to-do list templates. Do we, Danny? I don't think we do.
No, if we did have them in here, Taylor, it would be so basic that it probably wouldn't be that helpful.
Yeah.
Because a lot of different, every area, this is a tool that KW uses on the national level, and every area has their different way of doing things, right? Like some areas don't stage. That's not a thing. We stage, we do prep. Like there is rarely a property that is not, freshly painted, staged, refinished flooring, or maybe has some carpet that needs to be redone or has been redone right before it's listed. So our list that you see on Matt's screen, his list is very curated based on our area and what the norms are here. So I would just, and his, you can see is, it's kind of rudimentary, like it has the broader strokes. I would, you're doing your research. We have a lot of great agents. You can pick their brains. You have Blanca as a resource. Blanca can absolutely give you a list for everything that you would need to do under to get something active or active listing prep. I would absolutely lean on her for those kind of local insights here.
Okay.
For us.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I think I have all these. Yeah, but
yeah. Yeah, I would absolutely go to her. That's what I would do if I was you. Matt, how did you get your lists together? Just things you learned over time?
Things I learned over time, and some of it is just, common sense of trying to keep track of things. To be honest, I'm a pretty organized person, so I don't use these lists as much as I should, but they're there for me to kind of just remind me through things. And as I get busier and busier, you don't want to forget things. So I think it's like good to just kind of continue to fill these out. One of the things where I think this is most helpful is there's a lot of different forms that we have to get signed. Things like doing a photo shoot and adding photos to MLS, that's pretty straightforward, right? But there's a lot of forms that we need to have clients fill out. Like there's a new one that BRLG just came up with regarding non-contingent offers, right? So you could put that on your task list of like, hey, you don't want to necessarily give someone that the day that they're signing the buyer representation agreement because they're already kind of overloaded with the amount of information you're giving them. But if you're getting to a point where you're starting to write offers, that's a great opportunity for you to then send them that information. So it's really good to kind of break up all the different things because there are just so many forms that need to be signed at some point or another. But you don't want to just necessarily send them 80 forms on day one because they're going to like run for the hills and be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to sign all these forms.
Right. That is very helpful. So you're adding some reminders in here of when to execute certain forms.
Yep.
Awesome. So overall, Matt, since you've been using this, I've noticed you've closed more deals. What would your advice be for other agents just kind of starting to use this?
I think, it grows over time, right? So if you're a new agent, you might only have 2 people that you've talked to that that have expressed interest in real estate. This person right here, for example, I've been talking to this person for 2.5 years about selling their mom's home in San Francisco, and they had to, there's more information but move them into assisted care living, and there's siblings involved, and so they've never been able to come to consensus on what they want to do with the property. But at some point, they're going to want to sell it. And so it's like important for me to keep it here and important for me to continue to check in. So you don't want to look at your sales pipeline and be like, oh, this has been here too long, I'm just going to remove this person. Like that's the wrong way to be thinking about it. It should be like, you're just adding more and more people. I mean, at some point you might have 50 people on your watch or nurture list. And that's great because those are all people who at some point have expressed interest to you in the past about real estate. And it really allows you to focus on those people and make sure you're touching those people, because that's a much better use of your time talking with someone who has expressed interest in real estate than calling someone who has never expressed any interest in real estate, right? So.
Okay, I have another question for you, Matt. Before you were using this for your sales pipeline, what were you using and how did you feel it was working?
I've only used Command, Danielle.
So before this though, didn't you have a spreadsheet or something you were using?
No.
You've always used this. Okay.
I have a spreadsheet that I track only because it has like the financials in it. So I actually have a separate spreadsheet that I use to track just so I know what's closed and how much money I made off of each deal, because it's hard to get it out of this pipeline. But that started after I started using Command. So I've always used Command to track everything.
Okay, cool. What would you tell somebody who isn't using this at all for Cultivate or Appointment, what would you tell someone?
Well, that you're missing out on being able to keep track of a lot of, potential, and also bucket your potential, right? You might have an Excel spreadsheet that just has like 10 names on it, but this allows you to really kind of track them through the process and move them through. And you're going to need to be putting them in here at some point when you get a listing or you get a buyer representation agreement. So what harm is there in spending 2 minutes adding a new opportunity in here today, where you just, say create opportunity, and you fill out this one page with just very high level, like, are they going to buy $1 million property or a $5 million property, and connecting it to, connect it to a client. And, I could be like, okay, Tim Gilson's going to buy this property, blah, blah, blah. And now it's in here for you to build a track. So that's what I would tell people.
Brilliant.
It's like, it's so easy.
And then I know this is not really on the topic of using opportunities to close more, convert more leads or close more clients, but have you used the new client updates feature at all?
So I haven't used that per se yet. But the way it works, if you wanted to, so let me go back to listings and let's edit stages. So let's say under here, under staging, if we did the photo shoot, you could mark this client update. And once you do the photo shoot and mark that complete, it will automatically send an email to that client saying, hey, the photo shoot has occurred. So just depending on how you want to use this and how you want to communicate with your clients. Some people are very hands-on and want to make phone calls and tell them, hey, the photo shoot happened today, it went great. There's other clients out there that are like, I don't want you to call me, I'm too busy with life, just shoot me an email and let me know when things get done. So you have to manage it the way you feel, but that's a great opportunity for you to send this type of information to your client with an automated email that says, hey, the photo shoot occurred. Or you could do the same thing for the inspection or the appraisal, right? So all those different types of things that are happening as you're going through a transaction, you can set them up to automatically get an email when those things are done, when you've marked them off your list as done, so that your clients always know exactly where they stand in the process.
Really great. And then there's that settings section right up there on the top sort of right area. What is that? Is that where we enable it or?
Yep. So this lets you set when obviously we're setting the time zone, and it's going to send them at I guess every morning is my understanding. This is actually different than when I last saw it.
Okay, so these are just the settings, the back end settings of.
Yeah, and you can do client and co-client. So if it's like a couple or primary client only. So there's a bunch of different things you can do in here. To be honest, I don't have this set up.
Gotcha. And that's okay. I mean, I see this working really well for large teams, and maybe they have many transactions going on at once, and several, maybe they have an operations person handling things, right, and checking these things off. And maybe they don't have as much time to be following up with those clients. But I know that you're really hands-on. So for you, you're probably updating them more regularly on the progress.
Yep. So I just got a text that this closed escrow and is recorded with the county. So confirm closing date. Today is the closing date, and confirm closing. And now it moves over here to closed, which of course is 100%.
I know we had an entire hour scheduled for this class, but really, I don't think we need that much time. I think we've pretty much covered everything in, how to close more transactions through using your sales pipeline tool. Matt, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
The other cool thing about this is that you can also look at the timeline. So we don't talk about this often, but this kind of just also gives you a snapshot of everything that ever occurred with this transaction. So if you're kind of looking historically, trying to find out, well, when did this happen? When did this document get uploaded or get rejected? As you can see, this goes on and on, but it also lets you go back historically and see when this opportunity was created. So I created it back in January And then you can kind of see as it's gone through the pipeline. And when I added notes, that type of stuff. So it's also very helpful if you're ever trying to think back 6 months ago when you were doing a transaction about when you started that and those types of things. It's great because it's all right here for you to very easily be able to find.
So let me ask about the document. So I guess, so you can update that in this tool too, like if you have different things signed?
Yep, so that's a whole different class.
Oh, okay.
That we would take an hour to go into, but yes, all the documents get uploaded here. The listing agreement, pretty much everything has to get uploaded here for you, and that so the compliance team can review everything and give you, as you can see right here, Bella reviewed and said, hey, this is okay to pay because everything's been done except for the closing documents. This is returned, but that's because I don't have verification of property, which is happening right now. And the closing escrow statements, I'm going to get any minute now and be able to add them on in here. So. But all the listing and under contract information. So this is all the disclosures, the TDS, the AVIDs, everything goes in here and gets reviewed and then approved, which is why it's got green check marks next to it. So.
And the class for that is transactions in command. I teach that quite often. However, I do have that on my YouTube channel. Taylor, do you have a link to that, or do you want me to drop one in the chat for you?
I mean, yeah, if you have it handy, I'm sure I could probably try to find it somewhere. But yeah, if you have it handy, that would be great.
I mean, grab it and I will drop it into the chat.
Okay.
Because there's also offers and commissions in here that we go through as well with the different offers that you get from clients and how to present those. So there's a bunch more in the kind of sales pipeline besides just Danny and I just want to focus today on kind of the pipeline of how do you nurture your pipeline on this end of it before it gets down this direction to the finalizing it.
Yeah, so that I just dropped a link to my YouTube channel in the chat. There are 2 transaction classes. I would go with the more recent one. I was able to cover everything in that hour, including the offers, a little bit about DocuSign rooms, so offers and commissions. So the whole entire thing in 1 hour. And that's probably the most tedious thing that we teach because there's just so many little things and moving parts. So we like to teach this one separate because when I teach the transaction one, I kind of assume that everybody sort of knows about opportunities, how to drag and drop them, about, the checklist, just how to work with them in moving them along through the transaction. I kind of assume that that's all taught. So this is the class to teach how to work with the opportunities, how to close more deals, get more out of, your current leads and prospects. So, but the transaction class, I think I teach that once a month, Taylor. So it's
okay.
I don't know the calendar off the top of my head, but if you're feeling like you want it live, it's definitely something we teach a lot.